G'day guys, welcome back to True Eagle. It's time to talk about this Saturday night's clash against the Essendon Footy Club. This is a big game for us. It's not necessarily a big headline clash between two amazing sides. I think Essendon's good, they're a decent side, absolutely, that's proven. But it's a big game for us because it's challenging, very challenging, and yet still winnable because of our recent form at Optus Stadium, albeit against two sides that are probably ranked lower than Essendon on quality from what we've seen so far. But either way, it's winnable, and therefore there is a degree of expectation to get close to winning this game. It'll be passable if we don't win, but at the same time, this feels like a big game. Arguably bigger than playing Collingwood at Marvel next week. So I am excited for it. I have done the math. I thought I was flying before this game. I'm not, so I'm going to be in America when I watch it. But I'm looking forward to it. It's on at 6 a.m. here. Last time we met Essendon, we lost this game by 50 points. It was 46-96 in round 11 of last season. I estimate there's about 7 changes from this side, but on the whole, that's comparatively less from the last time we played Essendon. But at the same time, there's still a massively different makeup. The form lines are different. We've got a fit and firing Jeremy McGovern. Jake Waterman's in career best form. Elliot Yeo's approaching career best form, if not quite at that level. So we are still a very different side, but I still thought I'd just note there's about 7 changes, and that was also from memory that game. That was right in the middle of where things got horrific for us. So 50 points last year, it's crazy to think, but that result was considered not too bad at the time because I think we'd just lost to Adelaide heavily around that time. I think it was post Hawthorn. In fact, I think it was the week after Hawthorn. That's what it was, and then things got from bad to worse there. So this time around, it feels a little bit different. We're probably, still on the edge of being a bottom 4 side at Essendon. We're still getting a read on, but at the same time, the body of work that they've shown this year suggests that this will be a very tough match for us. And they're probably looking finals quality at this current point in time. So in terms of their form line, they're 3-1-1 from their last 5. The third one there is their draw against Collingwood on Anzac Day, which is a very, very solid result, and it was a good game. They had an impressive win against the Dogs in that stretch of 5. They beat the Saints and they beat the Crows, albeit narrowly, with one big loss to the Power, which we also sustained. So in terms of looking at the guys who I think will cause us some troubles, I think Zach Merritt is perennially going to be a threat for opposition teams. So he's going to naturally be someone we consider in the midfield battle. A little bit interested/worried about how Goldstein and Draper go against Bailey Williams. I think Bailey Williams is better than Draper, but Goldstein is that big, strong, lumbering ruck. That has been a problem for Bailey Williams, that type of ruck in the past. So I think it's important that he plays well. And they've got some weapons as well in Nick Martin, who's, I think, up there for uncontested possessions in the league. And we've seen a bit of a positional change rather, and playing a bit more half-back, and he's been super damaging. Sam Durham's also having a fantastic year. These guys will all be threats. And the nature of their forward line, I think, is quite dynamic. It's not star-studded, but it's dynamic, and there's some height to it, but they're also versatile players. They're not too tall, but there's a bunch of them. So I think getting the backline mix for this game, which I will elaborate on shortly, that will be important for us in terms of finding adequate matchups for all these sort of in-between sized players for Essendon. So let's do a little bit of a stats breakdown. So prior to the Gold Coast game, we were ranked 2nd in the league for contested possessions. I was very vocal about that because I thought it was an awesome stat. But in the fallout from that game, we've dropped right down those rankings because of the beating we took against the Gold Coast Suns. And like I said, the scoreline flattered us in my opinion. I thought, the profile of that game looked a lot closer, if not worse, than some of the first 4 performances or 3 performances of this year where we got well beaten. And we were a little bit lucky not to get beaten by more. I know the flow of the game didn't maybe really feel like that, but you look at the profile of the stats and how we played, I don't think it was a very encouraging performance. That being said, these things will happen. I'm relaxed about it, but also trying to be fair with my criticism. It wasn't a great performance in terms of doing what we do well consistently. We didn't do that. So we dropped to the 9th in one game in contested possessions because we took a battering in this stat, minus 37. Which is crazy. Not only that, we outlasted the league for uncontested footy. Now, uncontested footy doesn't sound like something that you really want to strive to do. And no stat in isolation is going to be super reflective. But we are consistently bad at winning uncontested ball. So what does that mean? Why is that bad? Like I said, uncontested ball doesn't sound sexy because it's just you getting the ball in space. But what it reflects is our ability to control the footy. And I do think of it now. We win contested footy quite well. We're still 9th. I mean, one really bad performance there drops us from 2nd to 9th. But I think of some of the highlights, the clearances, the impressive stuff, the inside 50s, Harley Reid, Elliot Yeo, Tim Kelly. The amount of times a player rips it from the inside and then breaks through traffic to deliver the ball inside 50, that's just pure contested footy there. There's not too many occasions we've been able to control the footy and get a meaningful chain out of a stoppage situation and deliver the ball inside 50 with precision. You do need a balance of both. I think the best teams will have a balance of winning their own contested footy when the ball's in dispute, but also having powerful runners on the outside to support and distribute the footy. That's what we're really lacking. And you look at this team, it's very inside heavy. And the outside mids we do have are not getting their hands on the footy like we talked about. This has been a problem for years. Andrew Gaff's decline has also partly been because of that. It's a little bit of a chicken-egg situation. I don't know to what extent Andrew Gaff, sure, he deserved the criticism he was given. He was rightfully dropped. But then, Luke Edwards plays that role, gets 9 touches last week. Chesser had 6. There's just not a lot of possession being used amongst our outside ball winners, and Ruben Jinby probably falls into that category as well. Again, probably, I haven't checked, but he's probably averaging less than 15 touches a game this year. So for whatever reason, they're not getting their hands on the footy. Now, to what extent is it those individuals, their shortcomings, they're not running hard enough, they're not running to the right spots to support these chains of possession? Or is it systemic? Are we not doing the right thing from a stoppage situation to get the ball in the hands of these guys on the outside? I'm not too sure, to be honest. And I'm not surprised that we haven't fixed everything in one hit. I'm pragmatic about that. We strive to become a strong contested side that gets the ball parked in their front half and putting pressure on it. We have absolutely held up to that, it has to be said, in terms of the way we play. We've delivered to some extent so far on what Simo preached in the preseason. So the fact that we haven't completely rounded out our game in a complete sense is not a massive problem, but it is a clear area of weakness. Ground ball gets was another one that we strive to improve on. We were, again, I don't have stats on the top of my head, but I reckon we ranked pretty low for ground ball gets over the last handful of seasons, and Simo has been vocal about this. We are now second in the league for ground ball gets. Again, in isolation, that stat doesn't mean a lot. Some of the best ground ball teams are not good teams, but it's still an important one. And I do think these sorts of contested ground ball sort of game styles do hold up in September, even though at the moment, there's an argument to be said that contested possessions and clearances are not really translating in wins early in the season. I think that will change by the time finals rolls around. So once we are a finals quality side, I think it bodes well for the future. We're third last in inside 50 differential. This is not a surprise. We got absolutely battered in this stat by the Gold Coast Suns. So let's look at Essendon. They are the 4th best contested side. So they're lower than us in this particular area last week, and now they're 4th and we're 9th. They're also the 2nd best clearance side in the competition behind Fremantle. So their profile actually is quite similar to Fremantle. I suppose that bodes well because we were absolutely able to school Fremantle. We just got to beat them at the things we do well at, which we struggled to do and failed to do against the Gold Coast Suns. They're also the top 4 in overall disposals. So they've got a good balance of winning their inside ball, winning clearances, and getting the ball on the outside too. So I think simply we just have to beat them in the same way that we beat Fremantle in a lot of these key stats to ultimately win the game. Their forward line will be an interesting proposition, and that's where we sort of lead into changes. What sort of players do we bring in for this week? There's a few obvious ones, you'd imagine Noah Long comes back in, not absolutely guaranteed, but I'd imagine he comes back in given, someone like a Tyler Brockman hasn't really excelled. I think that's being very generous there. He's struggled to get his hands on the footy, 4 touches last week or something like that. Noah Long probably comes back in for Brockman. Barras, you'd think definitely comes straight back into this side. And Harley Reid comes in as well. So figuring out who comes out is the interesting part. Now, I thought Harry Edwards did pretty well. His first game for a long time. He has had an injury-interrupted couple of years and wasn't, playing particularly well in the waffle, got suspended once, interrupted preseason, but he actually had 9 intercept possessions against the Gold Coast Suns, which for context was the same as Jeremy McGovern. So I'm pretty happy with how he went this week. And when you consider their forward line, guys like Langford is 8th in the common with 17 goals, by the way. Peter Wright, Jake Stringer, Harrison Jones. Jones I think plays a little bit higher up the field, but either way, he's about 6'5". And you consider Sam Draper as well, who pushes forward as that second ruck. So I think there's a lot of height and aerial threat there. But, guys like Stringer in particular are pretty good at ground level too. So finding a matchup for him will be interesting. Will it be Brady Hoff? Is there a small forward that we need to nullify more than Jake Stringer? If it's not Hoff, who goes to Jake Stringer is an interesting one as well. There's maybe a Josh Rotham. There's going to be a mismatch there because Stringer is shorter but stronger and still pretty quick and good at ground level. So that one will be an interesting battle for us to try and nullify. But that was a very long-winded way of saying I wonder if we keep Harry Edwards in the team this week and go with 3 genuine tall backs, McGovern, Barras, and Harry Edwards, and then have Rotherham play a little bit higher up on the ground or do a job on Stringer or something like that. I don't know if that's my preference. I'd probably still prefer Hoff on Stringer. But I'm just saying, I think there's a case to be made for bringing Barras in and leaving Harry Edwards in the team. Now, what does that look like in terms of who comes out? Well, there's Witherden. I think Witherden's been okay. So it seems harsh to drop him, but we do have to probably drop a medium-sized defender to accommodate another key back into this team. So you could possibly drop Witherden, otherwise you could relegate Luke Edwards to being the sub. I'd imagine Dom Sheed comes back into the 22. Like I said, I don't think he set the world on fire, but these low possession counts for our outside mids makes me wonder if maybe it's time to get Dom Sheed into the game. He hasn't necessarily earned it, but there isn't a whole lot of stiff competition at the moment in our midfield. And then there's Harley Reid to come in, and I'd imagine maybe, one of Luke Edwards or Chesser come out. It feels harsh on Edwards and Chesser. Like I said, I'm starting to come around to the idea that I think it's just some sort of team disconnect rather than these guys doing the wrong thing and being passengers. Like, I'm wondering, there's no connection between the inside and the outside, and that's been a problem with our midfield for a while. Yeah, we ticked a few boxes. Now we've got to figure out the next step. How do we get our outside mids involved? Does Chesser go to being the sub? I almost think if he's going to be played slightly out of his ideal position, which in my opinion, I'd like to see him at more centre bounces, playing a bit more balanced inside and out rather than a pure wing role. If he's going to be the sub and then come on as a wingman for the last quarter, I wonder if it's better just to get Dom Sheed into the 22, maybe relegate Luke Edwards to sub, and get Chesser into the waffle where he can get his hands on the footy. Because, yeah, it's good to have AFL exposure, but it also would be nice for Chesser to get back into the waffle, get his hands on the footy 20 times, and then, really build confidence that way. Again, it's not meant to isolate him as someone who's really struggling. It's just that at the moment, I don't know what's better for his development. Him struggling to get his hands on the footy at AFL level or playing a little bit in the waffle. I'm inclined to think let him earn his spot back in the waffle, and that will still be good for his development. So overall, I think this is a tough game, and it's just going to depend how we come out and approach this game. And equally, I think this is a test for Essendon, who have had a good start to the year. They sit 4-2. They've beaten some teams I didn't expect them to. I expected them to be about 2-4 at this point of the season, and they're 4-2. So they've flipped that, and they deserve credit. But no doubt, Essendon's Achilles heel has been their ability to really step up with these challenges. And we might not be the most imposing opposition right now, but I do feel like the crowd up and about, Harley Reid back into the team. If we can create a hostile atmosphere, this might be a challenge for Essendon. It could go either way, absolutely. I'm braced for the possibility this game doesn't go well. But I do think, there's a bit of intrigue about this game. I'm particularly looking forward to it. And I think we can win, but I haven't tipped us. Which makes it 8 consecutive games I haven't tipped us. But, maybe that's a good luck charm. I tipped us to lose in both of our wins as well. So we'll see what happens. I've got Essendon by 4 goals or so. I reckon that's the way this game plays out. But I'm hoping we see another derby-like performance where we're like, wow, West Coast, when they click, are shit hot. I'm hoping for that, but it's hard to make the case for that at the moment. But either way, looking forward to it. Looking forward to your comments in the comment section below. Let me know how you think this game is going to go. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.